Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today let's talk about all the amazing fantasy books that I managed to finish in May. The good news here is I have completed 2 series that has been on my TBR. By the end of the video, I will try to tier rank all the books that I have read in this month instead of giving them an exact rating. So if you're interested in it, stay tuned to it. First of all, let's chat about the basic statistics of the books that I have read. I have managed to finish 6 books in total, and 5 of them are fantasy, only 1 of them is sci-fi. I have read 4 physical books with 1 audiobook and an ebook. I have read over 3,200 pages, and on Goodreads, I gave them on average 3.7 stars. So now let's chat about all the amazing fantasy books that I have read according to the time I finished them. First of all, I have the book That Broke the World by Mark Lawrence, the second book of the library trilogy. This series is mainly about this massive old library, which is seen as a way to accumulate knowledge since the very past. Some rooms can only be opened by certain species, and there is a constant conflict between its creators, depending on how you utilize the knowledge of it. Should we keep the library for people to gain knowledge, to gain wisdom, or should we burn the library down because of its potential dangers? This book takes place right after the first book, and we follow 2 familiar characters. First of all, we have Livera. For some reasons, she was trapped in time and lost her physical body. And then we have Eva, who was like a romantic encounter to Livera in the first book, who wanna find her. And then we have a new POV, but it is a character that we know, and he is Apex, who was the librarian working with Livera, and now he was leading the rest of the people since the last conflict. Surprisingly, we have a new POV from a new character called Selcha, who was a new species, and his brother can listen to the voices of angels, and then the librarians see it as a way to work in the library for them. This book same as the first book, full of time traveling. As the story progresses, we're gonna see how every piece, how these 4 characters who are doing their own things gonna be connected together. I do like how these details are cleverly connected. But when our characters are discussing about the future of this library, I wish there could be a bit more to it because I found this part quite interesting and I enjoyed the dilemma between our characters. Also, when our characters are choosing their side, I wish there could be a bit more explanation to it, but I guess we need to wait for the last book for the answers. I'm not sure is it just for me. I don't find this book as whimsical as the first book, and I think this is what drawn people into, something that is so different from Mark Lawrence has written before, but that element is still present in this book, but not as strong as the first one. Overall, I still enjoyed reading this book, and I will definitely check the last book out in the future. The second book I have read in May is Dragon Rider by Tara Matharu. It is the Ghostblood GSFF April's book, and it comes with a slipcase. Even though this book doesn't have any spray edge, I still quite like this new cover. It looks really pretty and it assembles the dragon egg scales. It is actually the first book of an epic fantasy series called the Soulbound Saga. From the cover of this book, you can already tell it is all about dragons. Our main character is called Jay, who was a prince but now serves the emperor as a servant because of his father's failed rebellion. Now the king has arranged a marriage with a neighboring kingdom called Dansk, who is famous for its beasts like dragon. However, Jay has found out there is something more about this marriage. Somebody is planning a coup. Luckily, Jay survives this really bloody event with something unexpected, a dragon egg. He has to escape from this kingdom because he is the only survivor and possibly the only one who knows the truth about this coup. On this journey, Jay is not alone. He met a companion called Frida, who was the maid to the princess of Dansk. Frida, who used to keep dragon, teach Jay a bit more about this magic system, soul bounding, and its technique, soul breathing, ascending, also stronger sense because of this companion. These 2 are relatively new to adventures, so this journey is always full of dangers. Let's say who to trust and where to go. I like this book because of its take on classic fantasy. In a classic fantasy, it always begins in a village that nobody knows, and then somebody will bring news from the outside world to them, but then the danger comes. Our chosen one, our main characters, has to leave the village and fight for a war. On this journey, they will learn about their magic system and also learn some technique about fighting. This book, I would say, follow a relatively similar pattern, but what's so different is the beginning of it. We investigate this coup with Jay and we are as clueless as him. This coup turns out to be really bloody and we start a new journey with Jay to learn about his power together. This book is also really fast-paced. When it comes to the middle part, it is the world building, teaching us about the politics, the magic system. This can be kind of info-dumpy, but the chapters are usually quite short and always straight to the point. You don't feel too difficult to go through all this information. One thing some people may not like is about the character growth, but I guess it is the first book of a saga. So I think we shouldn't expect that it would be a massive growth of Jay in just the very beginning. I had a really good time reading this book, so I would definitely keep an eye on the future books. Coming to the third book, I have The Light of All That Falls by James Islington, the third book and the last book of the Lecanius trilogy. I honestly don't know where to start with this book because this series has been really long to me. In short, our main characters has to find a way to once and for all to end all these dangers from the Fenris and also the danger beyond the barrier. We still follow these four good old characters. Firstly, we have Davian. He was thrown into this unknown place and he met a group of characters who needs to collect metal for rationing. The metal then will be sent back to the Fenris because of its unique property. And then we have Asha. Because of what happened in the last book, she is really powerful. She needs to learn how to control this power to fight the Fenris. Where is our third POV who now has become the North Warden and he needs to convince others that the threat from the North is real. Then he will lead to battles against all the monsters. Lastly, we have Caden who needs to deal with his fragmented past. Heavy burden is on him to deal with this massive threat. I really like Where in this series, from a student to a leader, from a companion to the commander in a battlefield. He was not accepted by his family because of his identity as the gift. He is idealistic, thinking that he could save as much innocence as possible. But when the war comes, he needs to make difficult choice. I really like how he has grown, learned throughout these 3 books. I also really loved the epilogue of this last book. It was really emotional and cleverly ties up all the details, all the questions that we have been asking. At that moment when I was reading the epilogue, I was a big fan of Caden. After reading this trilogy, I just hope that it could be a bit faster. These 3 books are all really long, they can easily be over 600 pages. It is heavy with world building and its history, like from the creation of the world, the Fenris past, the August Rebellion and the Tenant, the relationship between this huge cast of characters. The reading I would say is easy to understand, but sometimes it could be with sand and stones. Sometimes, especially with Caden's flashbacks, Davian's chapters in this book, I would say we are spending way too much time on it and there are just too many details to remember. I highly recommend this series if you're into well thought out world building with intricate details. It will be a good choice to you. Another series I have finished in May is the Pack and the Pattern series by J.T. Greyhouse, meaning that I have finished the Pattern of the World, the last book of the trilogy. In this series, we follow our main character, Wen Alder, who was torn between 2 opposite ideologies in his family. His father is pro-emperor, he wants his son to be working with the emperor, but then we have his mother's side. His uncle has been leading a rebellion against the empire because they have been suppressing their religion. Since young, Wen has been learning magic with his grandmother. After the imperial exam, he decided to choose his third way. By becoming the hand of the emperor, he can make use of the power to shape the world according to his will. Later, seeing how the emperor has manipulated his magic system, Wen has decided to join the rebellion as it is the only home to him. Through this conflict, he awoke with a stronger power, hoping that by using it can stop the war between the rebellion and the empire. By the end of the second book, Wen made a huge mistake. He unleashed all the monsters that were bounded by the emperor. So in the third book, he needs to work with other characters to find a way to save the world. In the last book, we are not only following Wen, but also with 3 other perspectives. Firstly, we have Coral Ha, who was the tutor of Wen. Thinking that his success can help him bring more students in when he returns home, he did learn some more about his birthplace, but he didn't know that Wen is like a traitor to the empire. And then we have Ra, who got his power to summon a god called the Stormfather, like in Stormlight Archive. And also we have Pinion, who thinks that Wen was responsible for the death of his brother. I really like Pinion's storyline in the last book, from someone who hates Wen because of what he may have done, to understand his cause and then trying to be a peacemaker with him. But I am not too happy with how this story ends. It just happens so quickly. It's like we are wrapping up a trilogy in a rush. The final confrontation with the Emperor, I would say, is just too easy. Yes, I do like the trick by our Dr. Shaw, but it is just too easy. I just want more when you're fighting someone like a god in the series. And then from a fight with the Emperor turns into a philosophical discussion about magic, which is fine for me. And then our characters come up with a decision really quickly, and the next chapter is already a very short epilogue, which shocks me. Personally, I would like to see more of a bigger picture of what is going on the other side of the world. Let's say how Coral Heart's people are fighting with the Empire. What's going on with Rao's people who she has left before? How about other characters like Clear River and Pinion? How were they doing? How are they dealing with the local politics? I can see the potential there, but it is absent from the last book. I honestly wish I could love this series more and persuade you guys to pick this one up ASAP. But if you like Asian-inspired fantasy series, I think there are better choices out there. Sorry. The last physical book I have completed in May is The Martian by Andy Weir. It is actually the Broken Binding very first sci-fi subscription, and they have chosen 3 books by Andy Weir. The Martian is the first book of the first subscription ever. It is also my first time to read this genre, and I have made a reading vlog about it. So if you're interested in this reading vlog, me as a fantasy reader to read a first sci-fi, check that reading vlog out. It is about Mark and his crew mission to Mars. Because of an accident and the reading from Mark, the crew thought that Mark is dead already. For survival, they decided to leave first because of safety reason. But you know what? Mark survived, which means that Mark is the only person living on Mars now. It is a survival story of Mark until somebody gonna save him. He needs to come up with different methods to satisfy his physical needs, let's say oxygen, food, water, entertainment, and find a way to contact NASA on Earth. Based on the poster of the movie I have seen and also the cover of the book, I thought that we will be only following Mark, but I was wrong. There are also other characters, let's say the commander of NASA, the PR team, his crew, other representatives from other NASA programs, or even China. It is also about them, how they're gonna handle this massive crisis on Earth. This is my first sci-fi, so I am not too sure how can I rate it. From you guys, it is like a hardcore sci-fi with lots of different calculation, scientific explanation behind every chemical physical reactions. Luckily, Mark is a funny guy. He got his sense of humor. It makes it slightly easier for me to go through all this science lesson. I will definitely keep on reading other books by Andy Weir because we still got Project Hail Mary and Artemis. So if you're interested in me as a fantasy reader to read other sci-fi and make a reading vlog about it, do let me know in a comment. Lastly, I finished an audiobook which is Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas, the 3rd book of the Throne of Glass series. I need to apologize here because I can't really give an in-depth review about it because of my mistake. I think I started this audiobook in April actually, but then I had a week off which I didn't listen to it at all. When I was back, I lost all the records of my progress and I have no idea where I was in the book. So I have to find a midway point to start it all over again. So very briefly, in this book, Selena was sent off by Chaos and she met the Fey Queen Maeve. She wanted to find some answers for the world keys that the king has been using, which gonna cause disaster to this world. Then Selena was trained by another Fey warrior called Rowan. Chaos, Dorian, and Selena's cousin, Adian, working together to fight against the king. Unlike the last book, the romance here is quite minimum, but it is something that I enjoyed in the 2nd book. I think we only got Dorian's romantic encounter in the 3rd book, and I think that the pacing of this book is quite slow when Selena was learning about her magic power and also learning something more about fate. But when it takes off later in the book when she was going out investigating with Rowan, that part is actually quite exciting. In the ending, she had to confront her fear and trauma, which was quite satisfying to read. I will definitely keep on listening to this series and I hope that I can finish it within this year. So now, coming to the tier ranking of all the books that I have read in May. Firstly, on top, of course, we have The Light of All That Falls by James Islington. I really like Word, I really like the epilogue. It is quite a good ending, I would say, so it is definitely on top. And then in the second tier, I have Dragon Rider because I like to take on classic fantasy, and I also have a sequel, The Book That Broke the World by Mark Lawrence. Coming to the third tier, I have The Martian by Anywhere. As my very first sci-fi book, I don't think this is a bad experience at all. I guess I just need time to get used to it. In the bottom, very unfortunately, I have The Pattern of the World by J.T. Greathouse. I just don't like the ending at all. And I also have Air of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. I guess it is not the best experience because of my own mistake. So here are all the books that I have read in May. In terms of the number, I have done really well, but I think the quality can be better. Let me know in the comment what's your favorite book you have read in May, or maybe your least favorite. Share it in the comment. So if you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give it a like. If you don't want to miss any content from me, make sure you have subscribed to my channel. I will see you real soon. Goodbye.